as a community, about how we live together in community, how we work together, and learning about and engaging in the work that it takes to make our community possible. And so I'm grateful that all of you have raised your hands and gotten involved. And I look forward to your engagement in these conversations around this very important topic for our community and communities across the country. And I hope that as you move forward and you get into this work, that you're honest and authentic with the feedback that you give, that you are open to the feedback and the thoughts and experiences of each other. As Chief mentioned, this is a group that you represent all sorts of different perspectives from our community, but it's important to remember that you only have to represent yourself, that you only have to represent your perspective and what you think, that you're not expected to represent whole groups of the community based on your identity, whatever your respective identity is. So as you get into this work together, remember that you're all members of this community, that we are all members of this community, that we care about this community, and that's why we're having these conversations and working together, is because of our care for this community and our shared wish that it can be a good place for all people to live, a safe place for all people to live, and the kind of place where you can make a life, no matter who you are, no matter what your abilities are, your identity, and that's our shared work together as a community. So as you go through this work together, please know that you're always welcome to get in touch with me directly. In the interest of this being a conversation that is focused on advising the police department and engaging in conversations about the work of law enforcement in this community, I'll be giving this group space. I'll be giving you room, and but I'm always here and available to weigh in or to have follow-up conversations with the group as a whole or individually. Please feel free to get in touch with my office if you'd like to talk as you get into the work. I'm absolutely open to that, and I will also lean on this group when there are things I need your help with. I hope that's okay with all of you, but I will lean on you, and I know that Chief Thomas will too. So with that, I'll hand it back off to Chief. But again, thank you so much for joining in this work, and I look forward to seeing what you can do together.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. Kudos to the mayor. He came into office at a tremendously horrific time. We had a emergency operations center actually set up here in this room that I'm in now in the basement of the police department that he got thrown into as a newly elected mayor. And then obviously we had the issues, significant issues in Minneapolis and the social unrest and the social justice discussions that we've had that he has been intimately involved in helping reach out to different parts of our community and engage them. So I just want to thank the mayor for that. I appreciate that. Introductions, boy, I thought about going around and having everybody give a little 2-minute spiel on who they are and what they do, but I think that might be a little difficult with this, and I didn't give you a heads up that I would do that, so I don't want to surprise you by doing that. I think we'll do that some other time. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a little introduction or talk a little bit about me very briefly, just so you have some semblance of where I came from and how I got here. I grew up in Appleton. I went to public and parochial schools in Appleton, graduated from Fox Valley Lutheran. My high school had probably 400 or 500 kids at the time, and we had one Hispanic student in the entire school. So that was the Appleton that I grew up with back in the early 70s, mid 70s. So Appleton has changed a lot, and it's become much more diverse and inclusive. It's grown. I love it. I got into law enforcement 35 years ago. I was lucky enough to start actually at the Appleton Police Department as a community service officer back in 83, 84. Went around, worked at several other different departments, small cities and counties. Spent most of my time up in Green Bay, and then was absolutely blessed to be able to come back to Appleton. Not just to live and raise my youngest daughter, but to work with probably some of the most professional, compassionate people I've ever met in my life. And I don't know why I got so lucky, but I did. And I thank God for that every day. So that's a little bit of my background. You're going to meet my command staff as we go forward and we talk about topics that you want to talk about. You've already met Beth. Beth's actually here. Hi, Beth. Beth is my assistant. She'll be your point of contact. So if you have any questions, have any concerns, you have technical issues, you didn't get a handout or something sent to you, call Beth or give her an email. She will respond. Beth is the heart and soul of the Appleton Police Department. She hasn't been around here for, 5 months now. She's had to work from home, and I can just tell you the building is not the same without her. She's just one of those people. So we miss you, Beth. But she will be your point of contact if you have any questions. Megan Cash is helping me out right now. She's the IT AV person, taking care of everything. So I want to thank Megan for setting that up. Talk a little bit about the board. I know you guys all read the application. You did a great job putting in on applying for the position. There was a process to go through. So I know you understand a little bit of what the board is about. But why the board now? The Appleton Police Department has had these community advisory boards in the past, but generally they were specific to a certain topic. So if we were redoing our strategic plan, for instance, we would get together community members and discuss that and have an advisory board. We were looking at some special type of equipment. We would have a community advisory board. You're different. This board is going to be an ongoing board. And this board will be more involved in advising us on policy and procedure and equipment and some of those other issues that some of you have emailed me on, which I appreciate. You'll be advising us on that. So this will be a longer standing board. Like the mayor said, I am going to invite all of you at some point, not now, to come in and do a ride along with some of our officers, just to talk to them directly and get a feel for what they do. But I also invite you to call me anytime you want, send me an email anytime you want if you have a personal question or something you're not comfortable asking in front of the group. We've all been on committees and boards before. I get it. There may be a question sitting in the back of your head where you're just not really sure you want to ask it. I'm going to encourage you just to ask it either by a phone call or an email. So we would really appreciate that. The timing of the board was something I wanted to talk about. We had discussed this in the last several years, creating a board, but it was one of those things that got put on the back burner with everything else. Something else always comes up, right? And I'm sure you have it in your place of business, your personal life. You have plans and then something comes up and it just gets put on the back burner. Obviously with what happened in Minneapolis and all the challenges that law enforcement has had, and all the questions being asked about law enforcement and what are we doing locally? You know, we see what's happening nationally, we see what's happening in other parts of our state, but you know, what about home? What about locally? What are our police doing? And what can we expect from them? So it seemed like the perfect time to have those discussions and put this committee together. One of the things that I think is going to be really helpful for this group is the understanding that everyone in this group is coming from a good place. You would not be on this committee and be volunteering your time and making this commitment if you did not want this city and this community to be better, if you did not want to make things better. I know many of you, looking at the screen now, I know many of you from other organizations and groups that you work for, that you work with. And you've been doing a lot of this work for years. So we all accept that everyone in this board is in it for the right reasons. And I appreciate everything that all of you are doing. I sent you, hopefully everybody got the handouts with the advisory board procedures and policies. If you did not get a copy of that, could you let me know? Either send us a chat message here if you want now. Open my chat box up. I just noticed there were some messages there.
I've been answering.
Oh, okay, thanks. Megan's going to answer your chat question, so I don't have to pay attention. Thanks, Megan. But if you did not get any of those handouts, you should have gotten some of the policies and procedures along with the other handouts. I'm going to try to do that for every meeting. So before the meeting, we'll talk about a certain topic, say next month's meeting, and I'll talk about that later. We'll have a topic. But before that meeting, I will send you a whole bunch of documents, anything that you would want on that topic, what our policy may be on that topic, and our procedures, so that you have time to review it ahead of the meeting. So we're not trying to go through all of that during the meeting. Try to be respectful of everybody's time. Does anybody have any questions now so far about the procedure, how the board got put together? Okay, I'm going to move on to the next item that we have on the agenda and talk a little bit about the format. Probably the best. We're going to have a very similar format to what this meeting is. We'll just start it off with maybe some discussion on last month's topic or the last topic that we discussed, some follow-up, maybe answer some questions that you might have thought of after that meeting. And I'll respond to them and answer them for you. And then we'll go into another topic, which is going to be a topic of your choice. And then we will do a presentation on that topic. Like I mentioned, we'll talk about our policy, what our training is. But the most important part of that is asking you what your recommendations are, what you think we could do differently. The reason for that, obviously, is everyone in this board, everybody on this group has a different perspective and a different life experience. Mine has been 35 years now wearing this uniform. So my perspective is very different than every one of yours. But the people that we serve, when it comes down to it, we are a customer service agency. We are a customer service organization, just like your gas station, just like your parks department, just like Department of Public Works. We work for the citizens, and we need the citizens to tell us what they want us to do and how they want us to police the community. So that's the importance of that. I will have those discussions on the topic and review the topic, and then we'll end every meeting with a roundtable, which again, we'll try it tonight, see how it goes. Much easier in person, but then we'll end it with a roundtable and we'll adjourn. So the length of the meetings can be anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, depending on the topic, depending on questions that you have, depending on how long the roundtable goes. And it could depend on what's happening in the world or in the community. We might have I hope we don't, but there might be another significant law enforcement incident that creates a lot of questions. So we may be here a little longer talking about that. So again, I appreciate your time and your commitment to that. I'm going to try to flip over to a shared screen here. All right, I've got a really short PowerPoint here. It's just 4 or 5 slides. I don't want to, we've all been through death by PowerPoint. I don't want to do that to you. So just a few slides to go through the next couple items that I'm going to talk about. I sent you what our strategic plan was for 2020. The plan is updated every couple of years. You can read what the plan is, what the mission is. Our mission is excellence in police service to the community and all that we serve. And we try to do that by using innovative collaborative strategies to respond to and prevent crime. We do that by several different key strategies, but I would like to point you more to our core values. If you've been around in Appleton for a while, you may not have even noticed, but we changed our squad cars about 3 years ago. We used to have fighting crime, solving problems on them for years. One of our patrol captains recommended that we change that to our core values, which I thought was a great idea, because that's what we stand for. I've got a policy manual that will show you that's over 900 pages long, which is a lot for officers to remember. So I don't expect them to have that memorized, but I do expect them to have our core values not only memorized, but lived daily. When we hire people, when we hire employees, whether they're officers or our civilian staff, we always talk about our core values: compassion, integrity, courage. Those are mandated. If you don't have those as a person, you are not going to be a police officer, at least in Appleton. And we talk about those in a lot of our different processes. But there's also a lot of other skills and values. I think I shared this with you also. This document is something I'm pretty proud of. This was created by a team, not just myself or some captains, but I sat down with every supervisor in the police department a couple years ago now, and we went through leadership skills and values. What do you think are the 15 top leadership skills and values that are critical to be a successful, not only leader, but a police officer? And these are the 15 that we came up with. Very proud of this. This is something that is posted in my office behind my desk, and I look at it regularly. I can tell you that I've walked through our supervisors' offices, and several of them have them posted on their wall. We use this document in all of our hiring processes and our promotional processes. So just recently, we went through a process to promote a lieutenant and a captain, and one of the questions that we had them do for a written report was to pick one of these 15 and tell us what it means to you, and how do you do this? How do you perform this every day? And give us some examples of how you've done this. So this is an important document. I just wanted to make sure you saw it. We're not going to go through it. You can obviously read it on your own time. So we've got the policy, we've got our mission statement, we've got our values, we've got our core values. But how does that get activated? How do we put that into practice? Several years ago, after Ferguson, we had a lot of conversations about what our mission was, much like we're having a conversation now. But the conversation was done back in 2015, early 2016. And we created what we call the 5-pillar initiative. These are the 5 pillars. So our 5 pillars were created to engage the community and to try to create more trust and build trust in the community with what we're doing, and be more transparent than we had been in the past. Again, this was post-Ferguson, 2015 into 16. Really briefly, the 5 different pillars: administration, mission, compliance. That's basically my job, Assistant Chief Potter's job. Make sure our policies are in compliance, that are accurate, up-to-date best practices. Make sure that we've got the proper equipment for our people. Make sure we're monitoring their behavior. That's the administrative mission compliance pillar. Second, very important pillar, which is something that I know in your surveys you found also very important, are inclusion and engagement coordinators. Our district captains have been delegated with that duty to be inclusion and engagement coordinators. They are reaching out, setting up community meetings, not just for themselves, but for their officers, and engaging the community that way. The community survey, we'll talk about that in a little while. Education is both internal and external education. We had learned through conversations with community members that we could have been doing a better job communicating what we do and why we do it to the community. So we created the educational pillar. One of the things that came out of that was our videos that you have seen. You all should have gotten that USB card in the mail. If you open that USB card, you'll find several videos on that card. If you did not get a card, please let Beth know. We'll make sure you get it. They were mailed out, I believe, last Thursday or Friday. But on that card are all those videos that we created. And they were to educate the community on things that we do. So that was part of that educational pillar. Also included in that is our social media program that Megan Cash runs. Youth intervention and mentoring. This was a huge topic. And I gotta give credit to Lieutenant Mike Frisch, who is our supervisor of our school resource officer program and our juvenile programs. He has done an outstanding job with this in the last 5 years. Our focus became very clear about 5 years ago when we initiated this program that our youth needed to be mentored more actively, and we needed to do interventions to keep them out of the criminal justice system as long as possible. So we started working with the school district, and our SROs became very active in this. The result is about 5 years later, we have seen a decline in the number of citations we've issued to juveniles of close to 70%, just because of a lot of intervention, a lot of counseling, and a lot of time and effort from our school resource officers. So that's the 5-pillar approach. And again, we can talk a lot more in depth on those in the future as we maybe pull up the SRO program as one of our topics to discuss. The table of organization. Again, this is just going to be a really quick overview of this. Does anybody have any questions about what I've covered so far? Are you getting any questions, Megan?
Just a lot of people have received the flash drives. I said we'll follow up
Okay.
with that.
All right. Yes, you'll get the flash drive. The table of organization. We have currently, these are all the employees that we have at the police department on these 2 sheets. We have 140 employees, 130 sworn officers, 27 civilian employees. So historically, if you go back about 20 years in 2000, we had 111 officers. In 2005, we had some significant budget cuts at the state level, and we actually had to cut 5 officers. So we went down to 106 officers for quite a few years. It's taken us about 20 years to get back to that level that we were at in 2000. But the good news is, if you look at our crime rate and our crime statistics, they've been dropping for the last 20 years. So it did not have a significant impact on crime in the city. If you look at the chart on your left, that is our patrol division. The Assistant Chief Larry Potter oversees patrol and our investigative division. He is the second in command. Our patrol captains, we have 2 patrol captains, Captain Dan Weisky and Captain Todd Freeman. Captain Dan takes the Northern District and the Downtown District. So basically everything north of the river, he is responsible for. Everything south of the river, Captain Freeman's responsible for, and he is also responsible for one of the other topics that we'll likely talk about. That's our community liaison officer and our behavioral health officer program, mental health response program. Captain Freeman also oversees our operations division, which is our community service officers and all of our special events. The other page is our investigative services and administrative side. So our investigative services captain is Polly Olson. She has several different divisions under her. Investigative services is our detectives. That's our detective unit. So we have 10 detectives and 3 civilian forensic evidence specialists. School resource officer program is coordinated by Lieutenant Mike Frisch, who will actually be getting promoted to captain very shortly here in the next month. But he has 12 officers assigned to him in the schools. As far as funding for the school resource officers, the school district reimburses us 40% of their wages, and they've been doing that now for a couple of years. The next division here is our Special Investigations Unit. That's our street crime unit. That's supervised by Lieutenant Gary Lewis. We have 4 officers that are in there from the Appleton Police Department, and we have 2 that are in there from the Outagamie County Sheriff's Department. So the Sheriff's Department has given us 2 of their deputies to work and coordinate with countywide on street crimes, drug cases, fugitive apprehension, that type of work. And then our support services unit, which is supervised by Todd Freeman. That is the division that does all of our training and hiring. Our PIO, Megan Cash, is also in that unit. Administrative Services Division is Kathy Alcox, is our manager of that, and that is our records division and the front desk, our police communication specialist. So that's a brief rundown of the department. I do have some benchmarking material for you. Excuse me. Before I get to the survey, we did do some benchmarking. This question came up with a few of you that had done the survey about what time would work best for you, what day would work best for you. But a few of you sent in some questions. We did some benchmarking to compare the crime rate for Appleton, our population, number of officers, our budget, etc., with 9 of the other similar sized agencies in Wisconsin. We left Milwaukee out. Obviously, Milwaukee is just a different animal. But we have Madison, Green Bay, Kenosha, Racine, Waukesha, Oshkosh, Eau Claire, and Wausau included in this benchmarking. For those 9 different departments, Appleton's property crime rate is 6th out of the 9. Our violent crime rate is 6th out of the 9. Our cost per call for service. So every call that we have has an estimated cost to it. We are 5th out of the 9 different jurisdictions as far as where we are per cost for call. We're also 5th in the number of calls per officer, which is pretty consistent. And then officers per 1,000 population, we are 8th. There's one agency that has less than us per capita. That's Eau Claire, and it's by like a 10th or 100th of a percentage. So our officers do a great job policing this community and keeping it safe with the numbers that they have. But I would say a lot of that is because of just the community support that we have and how this community polices itself a lot of times. It makes our job a lot easier. So I've gone through the table of organization. Does anybody have any questions about that or any of these positions, what they do? I know we're going to get a lot more deeper into the details as we talk about special units that you may want to talk about, but are there any questions anybody has now that I can answer?
They have a couple questions, Chief. They'd like to see the org chart sent to them, as well as a draft copy of the policy of the was sent out, but they didn't see a final copy. And then
Okay.
a list of the members. They would also
And a list of the members. Okay. I don't know if you heard Megan or not, but some people have asked. We will send out a copy of the table of organization to you, along with the final copy of the policy. And what else was there, Megan?
just a list of the members,
And a list of the members. Yes, we'll send out a list of the members if everybody's okay with that.
and then just some of the documents that you're going over today.
Yep.
Which I'm making notes of those for you.
Okay. All right, we will get those sent out to you. And again, if things come up or you have other questions of things you want to see, just please let me know, let Beth know. We'll get them out to you as soon as possible. The community survey. 2020 community survey got mailed out just recently. We've got just the background on this. Again, this was part of our 5-pillar project initiative. The first draft that went out in 2018. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because there's nothing really after this. This way I can see your faces at least. 2018, we sent out the first community survey. It was created by Silver Lake College. We wanted to do an independent survey, so we didn't want a survey that the police department ran, and we didn't want to do one of those surveys where you put it out on Facebook. And all your followers tell you how good you're doing. It's like the choir asking the pastor how the sermon was, in my opinion. So we did a scientific one. We had a Silver Lake College, a couple professors came in, worked with one of our retired lieutenants, Steve Elliott, put together the survey. They had it distributed They collated it, they put the report together, so we were totally hands-off on the entire survey. We got some really good information back on that. A lot of positive comments, but it also told us areas that we can improve on. Like our traffic enforcement was one of the areas that we rated the lowest on in 2018. Visibility in neighborhoods, being out in the neighborhoods, being out in the parks, being visible and interacting with the public. That was another area that we could have improved on. So those are areas that we've been focusing on the last couple of years. 2020 survey went out. This time it went out to 2,000 people. I sent you a copy. I hope you all got a copy of it. If you didn't, let us know again. We'll send you a copy. The most important questions, I think, are the ones on number 15, and that's the current issues questions. I was kind of asked by a couple people, it's really a strange time to be asking these questions because emotions are high on all sides. But we thought that was probably the perfect time to ask these questions about resources for the police department. Do they think that we're doing enough work in the field of racial justice and equality? And the school resource program, how much value do people have in that program, or is that an issue that we need to take another look at and do it differently? So we'll get those responses back. We'll see what they say. The biggest question that I always go to is the trust question. 2018, we were given an 86% rating on our trust. 86% of the respondents said they trusted us a lot or a great deal. That's a huge number, something to be proud of. But that means 14% don't. So that's the 14% that we need to keep working on. Why is trust so important? Trust is so important because we can only provide police services to the level that the public allows us to because of trust. If we don't have that trust, a lot of what we do is spinning our wheels. So that's why that's such an important topic for us. And we'll again, when we get those results back, they're starting to come back already. I think we've got a couple hundred back at least. So as they come back, we'll put a report together. I will get a copy first, of course, to the mayor and the police and fire commission. But then the first ones that will see it publicly will be you guys on the board, and we'll get it to you ahead of a meeting, so you have some time to take a look at it and come up with your own questions and thoughts, and then we'll discuss it at one of our meetings, hopefully before the end of the year. I'm pretty sure it'll be before the end of the year, maybe in November. So that is the community survey. Does anybody have any questions about the survey or the questions that they saw? How they might have been phrased? Here's somebody.
Chief, if they want you to just tell them when it'll be released, what is that going to look like?
The survey?
Yep.
Yeah, when the survey is released, it'll be a summary report. So it'll show every question. It'll show what percentage answered which way. We are getting, in the comments fields, I'm told we are getting a lot of comments on the issues of funding, racial justice, and school resource officer program, which I had hoped for. So I'm not sure how we're going to publish those, but we will get them to you to see. I'm not sure if we'll be able to publish them publicly, but we will get all those comments to you to see. I would think, I hate to give you a date because I hate to be committed to a date if something happens. Usually what happens is we've got to send out a reminder, which we'll probably do later this week, to people that have it and maybe have it sitting on the counter and haven't quite got to it yet, just to kind of remind them, hey, we need to get that back. And then we'll give them another few weeks. And then it's the process of collating, putting them all together. I would hope by early November we'd have those to distribute to you. I think that's another question.
If you want to open the chat, there's a couple questions in there.
Okay.
We can start to scroll through. I've been
All right,
told
this is
we'll
probably-
compile it and we can answer questions when we can't get to.
All right. I'm going to open up the chat box here. Try to catch your questions. If you're comfortable unmute, can they unmute? If you're comfortable unmuting and asking, I'd encourage you to do that too. All right. I'm going to have to go read through some of these. Yes.
Biggest question was the people of color is the first question we haven't answered in the chat yet.
What's that? More officers of people of color is needed? Yes. So Kanan asked about more officers of color is needed. Absolutely. It is we have been aggressive, and I can talk a little bit about that when we get to recruitment. We have 2 officers that are African American. We have several Hispanic officers, I think 6 or 7 Southeast Asian, but we have 2 African American officers. We have another African American officer in the process that we're going through now. But they are, we have been aggressive in trying to recruit. One of the things that we've done, we've done a lot of things trying to recruit at the high school level and home grow, if you will, candidates. But we've also gone and looked at the makeup, the enrollment of the colleges, and found that where most of the African American students studying criminal justice attend. And then we've sent recruitment teams down there. Most of them are in the Milwaukee area, UW-Milwaukee, Marquette, those universities, which is understandable. It's close to home for many of them. And the challenge is getting them to move up here. When they are looking for a job, there are so many jobs in the Southeast Wisconsin area for law enforcement now that unless they really want to move out of that area, away from home and family where they grew up to Fox Valley area or up here, it's really hard to get them. So we are actively trying to recruit. Again, we reach out to through the school district with our school resource officers. I know they are out recruiting even at the middle school level, trying to identify kids that have an interest in serving and trying to encourage them to become law enforcement officers. So great question, Kanan. Absolutely. Any help that we can get on that, we would really appreciate. Martha asked about the number of officers and staff needed. You're going to hear a lot of talk about per capita. Appleton has always had one of the lowest per capita rates in the state. So it's the lowest number of officers in the state. But we also have one of the safest communities. We have, if you look at the metropolitan area of Appleton, we are the 3rd largest metropolitan area in the state after Milwaukee and Madison. But our violent crime rate isn't even in the top 10. We used to get extra money many years ago because our violent crime rate was in the top 10 and the state would give you extra money. They took that money away from us because we fell out of the top 10. So per capita is one number to look at, but there's also a workload distribution that we look at, which is much like many of you do probably for your businesses, is determining staff. You determine workload, how busy they are, and if they're overworked and work isn't getting done, then you have to add staff. It's very similar to that. So we'll look at workload distribution. How much time do they have available when they're not on a call? What are our staffing numbers during certain times of the day, certain days of the week? We know during certain times of the day we're going to be busier. We're going to need more officers because the workload is higher. So we'll adjust our staffing. So we use those numbers. It's a lot of processing data, looking at response times, looking at call volume, how long do calls have to wait for an officer to respond to tell us what our staffing number really is. We don't go by just a per capita number. That really doesn't tell us much, in my opinion. I'm looking for another question. Yeah, we will email all those forms out to you that you see tonight. As far as community did get the names of everyone. They did not get the bios. Jessica asked that question. I guess I would leave it up to the mayor's office if the bios would be released, or if they could be released. I don't know if they could be. I think that's over my pay grade. Eben shaking his head no, so he would know. I don't think they could be, but before we would do that, we'd obviously let you know. Draft. Keith asked about the ethnicity of officers who are applying. We can get that data for you. Our HR department actually runs those reports, so I'll be able to get that data for you, and I'll email that out to you, to everyone. Thanks, Keith. You want to write that down, Megan?
Yep, got it.
Okay, thanks. See you against the roll call photo. Not sure what Paul's question was. Amy asked about the benchmarking data. I can send it out to everyone if you'd like. The data is from 2018. And it also includes some information on budgets, non-sworn employees, number of SROs, number of supervisors, calls for service, the size of the city. So it's, I will send that form out to all of you also. I'm sure there'll be some questions on that, so. As far as the mayor picking a fair sample of the community, he's my boss, so I'll just say he did an amazing job. But he had a team that got together. One of them was our diversity coordinator, Karen Nelson. If you know Karen, awesome person. I know she was involved in the decision making too, along with somebody from the library. So I don't really have the details on that. Yeah, we'll get the number of our employees' ethnicity compared to our ethnic population of the city. We can get that very easily. Joy, hi Joy, nice to see you again. I'm trying to practice your mindfulness. Joy did some mindfulness training for the department a few years ago. I need it now more than ever. Response rate, I think it was 33% for 2018, which is fairly average for a response, that type of response, I'm told. I'm hoping we'll get it up to 40 this year. Again, that'll make our percentage much more valid, as you know. Eben asked what training's in place to hire and retain officers of color. It's a good question. We have a mentoring program, Eben. So when an officer is hired, we try to find someone that we can that can mentor them, whether they're a brand new officer going through the academy, or some officers we hire have been officers for 6, 8, 10 years in other departments. And we try to match them up with people that are similar. You know, we understand that our officers that are Hispanic, African American, Southeast Asian, they have other challenges that they have to deal with that, you know, white officers don't have to deal with. So we try to partner them up with a peer that can kind of guide them through it. We have a lot of inborn support systems. So our shifts are very tight. Our officers work 12-hour shifts. I didn't get into that, but they work very much a team. So the team of officers are 6 or 7 officers. They literally live together half their life. So they become very tight. Their families become very tight. They have, you know, all their parties, their birthday parties, their kids' parties. They're all together. So that is a good support system for them. But that is a good question, though. What else could we be doing on that? I would be interested in your thoughts on that, Eben, or any of you. What we can do to help retain our officers of color that we hire, which we are getting more candidates. I'm very pleased. You're going to hear a lot of agencies are struggling to get applicants for officers. The process that we just closed a couple months ago, we had 171 applicants. That's more than we've ever had. So people aren't running away from this profession. They really aren't, at least not for our department. The top 15 officers that we have, top 15 applicants that we have going to interviews tomorrow and Wednesday, out of the 15, 10 of the 15 are current officers in other departments. We've got an officer from Montana. We've got an officer from Florida. We've got officers from across the state. We think that's because Fox Valley, number one, is a great place to raise a family, and it's a great place to live, but we think we've got a good department where people know if they come here, they're going to get treated well, the community is going to treat them well, and they're going to be allowed to do the job that they want to do, helping people. That's why we all got into the job. None of us got into it for any other reason. So I'd like to have a discussion with you offline, Ben, if you got time to give me a call about that, what thoughts you might have.
Sounds good, Chief.
I like your background too, Ben. You're the best. The first question posed to police officers: what do police officers perceive as being a serious problem in Appleton? I did ask that question back in 2018. That's a great question. But I asked that question back in 2018, and it was two things. It was mental health, which we deal with constantly all day long, and drug abuse and drug addiction. Those are the really huge issues in this community. Most people don't know that we've lost more people to overdoses, probably more than twice as many people overdoses than we have to COVID in Appleton. We may be even up to 3 times as many. There's not a week that doesn't go by where we are at a death scene with somebody that's overdosed. And that's not all the ones that we save. We Narcan people back to life pretty regularly. We see the impact on the kids and the challenges of the families and the neglect and the abuse. So our officers, I think I'll poll them again this year. They'll probably tell me the same thing: drug abuse and addiction and mental health crisis, and the challenges with people getting mental health services, even in a community like ours that is so resource rich. Rana asked about truancy issues. We are not involved in truancy issues anymore. I gotta try to remember when it was, a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. The city council eliminated the truancy court, got rid of the truancy ordinance. So actually, there you are, Rana, how are you? We don't do anything with truancy. If the school district comes to us to ask us to assist with truancy issues, we will remind them of that. They know that we don't. What we may do is if they are going to a house to deal with a truancy issue and they have concerns for their own welfare, or they think there might be a child welfare issue, but not to the level where they're ready to call in Child Protective Services, they may ask us to go with them just for safety and security, but that's all we do. Otherwise, we're not involved. Average higher education level of APD officers. I'm looking over at my assistant chief. Hopefully he's got the answer, but it's pretty high. All of our supervisors, we are required to have at least a bachelor's. I would say probably at least half, if not more, have master's degrees. Our behavioral health officer, which we're going to talk about him, I'm sure, in the coming months, Nacho, Sergeant Enriquez. If you have never met him, you need to meet him. Nacho is amazing, but he is actually a police officer who is our behavioral health officer, works with our people in the community that have mental health issues. He actually has a master's in social work, and he's a licensed clinical social worker. So I don't know. We won the lottery when we got Nacho, because not many police departments have somebody that's a police officer and a clinical social worker working in with that community. Trying to find some other questions in here. Yes, life experience is extremely essential. Mental health training. Alex asked about mental health training our patrol officers receive yearly. And most of, probably more than half of our patrol officers now have been through a 40-hour crisis intervention team training, CITT training. We also have a CIP, which is Crisis Intervention Partners Training, that we have officers that are trained on as trainers to do the training. And that is to a little lower level than the 40-hour course, but it's for the frontline officers and the people in the community they work with. So we actually do that training for the community. We put that on. So we've got a really good mental health training program. And I know in a few months that we're going to have Sergeant Enriquez on, and he's going to talk to you a little more about that and answer those questions. As far as a monthly recurring meeting, Paul, I think initially we'll start off monthly if everybody can make it. I think there's just a lot of topics. From the survey that I got back from you guys, I got a list of the top 10 things that you want to talk about. So I think there's some that are really important. The ones that it's funny because I kind of ranked them in my own mind, what I thought was most important. And I think we were all on the same page for the first 3 or 4. So I think it's important that we have those discussions on those topics. So we'll try a monthly meeting. If you can make it, you can't. You can make it. If you can't, they'll be taped and you can view them. And again, always follow up with us later. I understand people are busy and they have lives. Female officers, good question, Rana. You counting?
10, I think.
10? Yes, we have 10 female officers. 1 captain is a female. One of our lieutenants is a female. As far as LGBTQ officers, I have no idea. They haven't made it known to me if they are. I've never asked. I've worked with many in the past. Some want you to know it, and some will talk about it freely and be an advocate and talk publicly, and some prefer not to. So I don't ever force that, but I could not tell you honestly if we have any or not. I would assume we do. Do we keep track of stops? Kristen asked, do we keep track of stops that do not end in a citation, like a warning, profiling, stop, and to ensure officers are not using profiling, stop, or frisk? Every traffic stop is recorded. Both our computer-aided dispatch center has a call or a printout of the call and traffic stop. Even if they don't get a warning, it's listed. So we can pull that data out if we need to. It is one of the things we do monitor is our officers' traffic stops. And again, our officers are working very closely with a patrol lieutenant. The patrol lieutenant works the same exact shift that they work every day of the week. So they have that consistency of supervision. So yes, we do have that data available. Fairly easy to pull out of our computer system if we need it. Breakdown of training. Austin asked if there's a breakdown of training hours that officers put in a year. Yes, we do have that breakdown. We have to record it and actually send it into the state to get officers certified. There's 24 hours at a minimum that is required for each officer per year of training, and that is required from the state. If they do 23 hours and 45 minutes, they will get decertified by the state, which means that they have to go back through the recruit academy all over again. So 24 is the minimum. We not only allow it, but we encourage additional training hours, well over the 24 hours. Like I said, our CIT training alone is 40 hours. Several of our other schools, our SROs go to our 2 or 3 day long trainings. So we do have a printout and a breakdown of training hours that we can talk about. Women leaders, like I mentioned, we do have 1 female captain and 1 female lieutenant. How many on force? Question about those on the force coming from military duty. We do track that. I don't know what the numbers are. Obviously, in the last 10 years, we've seen an uptick just because of the number of veterans that we have coming out of the military. So that is something we've noticed more of. human trafficking has never gone down in the valley, unfortunately. But again, that's one of those things that's resource driven. We attack it when we have time. But it truly is one of those things that we could assign 2 or 3 people to every day, all day, and constantly work. It's that big of an issue.
Excuse me, not to interrupt you,
Yes,
Chief,
Ken.
but I did. I kind of, the text and all of that kind of messed up. But I do want to know, with the officers of color that you do have on staff,
Yes.
are you considering promoting them into leadership positions to where they, as you bring in new recruits,
Right.
they're able to train the new recruits based on Appleton and everything that we deal with in our community? So
Right.
I imagine like a lot, when you think about new recruits, they may come from bigger cities where it's more people of color in those cities. So when you bring them here, they need leadership and they need people to be able to explain what Appleton looks like to them. So my idea is that, the people of color that you already have on the staff, I feel that they should be in positions in order to train and educate other future prospects on what Appleton looks like. Does that make sense to you at all, Chief?
Yes. No, absolutely, Kanan. Thank you. No, and we have one of our, how long has Brandon been here? One of our sergeants is African-American. He's been here for many years. Yeah, and we've used, and he has volunteered to go down and do recruitments for us for that same reason that you mentioned, Kanan. As far as getting them into promotion processes, we can encourage them. Again, that's a career choice of theirs. But I do like the idea of using them as recruiters, sending them to those cities, those areas where we have a better chance of recruiting those people of color, whether it's African American, Southeast Asian, whatever nationality, ethnicity, using them to go and like you said, send the message and try to do that recruitment. I can tell you every police department is challenged the same way. We are all chasing the same candidates. I was in Green Bay. Part of my job in Green Bay was the professional standards division, where I was in charge of the recruitment and hiring. And that was 12 years ago. And we spent probably half our time trying to recruit minority candidates from other departments or from other agencies, other parts of the state. So we need it. We need it bad. And we're going to keep working on it. And any creative ideas that we can. We all joke with the other chiefs. I'll steal them. If you got them, I'll steal them. I'll apologize later. But appreciate that.
Well, my problem is that I feel like if the Black people in the community had more officers that they could look up to that look like them, I think it'll make it easier for the department. It'll make it easier for the department to de-escalate situations. If I look at a brother that looks like me, and I'm in the heat of rage,
Right.
he may be able to talk me down because he may remind me of my brother. He might remind me of my uncle. He might remind me of my, a family member. And I think that that's something that we face in this community, not only with officers, with teachers as well. So we haven't even got into the Appleton School District, but it's the same concept. People come from bigger cities here, and they just need to be able to feel like they're at home. They need to be able to feel like they're welcome. Right. And when you see people that look like you, it make you feel more welcome. Sorry, Chief, if I'm talking too much.
No, God bless you. Appreciate it, Kanan. What I would do, well, maybe let me throw this out as a challenge to you. One of the other things that we've done is use our community service officer program. It's the light blue shirts that you see out there. Those are not officers. They're civilians, but it is kind of like a training ground, if you will. It's where officers, people that have just started maybe going to the technical college or UW, they're 19, 20 years old. They're thinking of a career in law enforcement. Well, we'll hire them as community service officers to get them in the door, to give them experience with the police department. And we pay them a pretty good wage to work part-time around their school schedules. And then we get a hook in them. We've gotten good candidates, minority candidates through the CSO program where we'll get a hook into them as a CSO when they're young, knowing that they're going to want to continue to work for us, and then we'll hire them, promote them up, if you will, to be a police officer. So if you have anybody that you know, it doesn't even have to be going to school for criminal justice. It could be, a family member, somebody you know who you think would be a good police officer because they got a good heart. Maybe they're going to school for mechanics or accounting or whatever, and they're just not sure what they want for their career path. Hook them up with us. Tell them to come meet with us. We'll show them our CSO program. They can do a ride along. And if we can get them engaged, like you said, Kanan, and get them in one of our uniforms and grow them into a police officer, that's a big win for all of us. So
I think one of the problems you're going to run into regardless is, number one, getting applicants. I mean, if you can't hire somebody if you're not getting the applicants. And the second part of that is, with all the turmoil and everything going on right now, how many people want to become a cop?
Right.
How many people honestly want to become a cop and put themselves in that position? I mean, I think that's a struggle. And then you have to figure out, once you get an officer in, do they want to be in leadership? They might like working on the street. Sitting behind a desk is not for them, so they want to stay on the street. I mean, that's an honest thing you're going to run into. I don't want to deal with the politics of it. I just want to be on the street doing my job. So I think that's always going to be a struggle no matter what.
Yeah, it's a good point, Keith. It is the numbers, and like I said, we've got those numbers to show what kind of the number of applicants that we get from different minority groups. I know it surprises people, but every step of the process, we seem to have people that drop out, like a third of the process. So we may have 150 people that'll apply. We'll invite them all for a physical, and we'll have 100 people that show up. And out of the 100 that show up, we'll have 60 that pass the physical. We'll invite them to an interview, and we're down to 40 that show up. So the numbers dwindle pretty quickly. The challenge that we usually see with applicants from farther away, the Milwaukee, Madison, Michigan area, is for some reason, they just don't show up. So a lot of times, like you mentioned, they'll either not apply, or if they do apply, they won't show up for the test for whatever reason. So,
is there a big pay difference between some of those larger cities and
no,
Appleton?
We're actually one of the higher paid in the state. We have a really good benefit plan, really good insurance.
Yeah, and I think you guys are even better than like the troopers or the sheriff department. So if anything, the city of Appleton should be more, I guess, appealing. But I was curious about like the larger cities like Milwaukee, Madison, things like that.
Yeah. What you got, Ben? James?
No, what I was just saying is, I'm originally from New York City, and they had to actually put different kinds of subsidies to even help cops have housing within New York City because it was so expensive. I think Appleton pays way better than many cities that are significantly larger than itself. But I think the hard part is it's Appleton. It's, people are like, what's the big draw here? Mine is Packers, and cheese, because some of us are lactose intolerant and some of us don't like the Packers. So just to give you that as a heads up, how you use that as a PR move for an officer to feel safe and want to be here.
Right. Yes, that's the challenge. All right.
Hey, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is Oladimeji. I know we have a list of problems here, a list of concerns that we have itemized. I see a lot of concerns and questions on the chat, but I know you're not going to be able to answer all of them. So the question is, how is this going to be addressed going forward? What is the plan so that everybody can be on the same page? What is the plan to address all the areas in terms of crime, in terms of mental health, in terms of all the the issues that we're talking about right now. So because it looks like we are answering the questions one by one, but this is
Right.
not going to be, it's not going to be the way we're going to go through
Right.
it. So the question is, how do we address this? Are we going to split the board into 3, 4, 5 areas that they're going to be monitoring this, or what's the plan?
Right.
What's the plan going forward?
Right. No, I love that. Again, tonight's just our first meeting, introductory, and going through some of the
Okay.
processes. But when we go to the topics, the next session, clearly what you guys wanted to talk about was community engagement and how we're engaging with the community, including doing outreach to the members of our minority, people of color, and marginalized communities. That was by far your number one selection on what you wanted to talk about. So that's what we'll talk about next time. And we'll dig deeper into that. We'll talk about what we're doing now. And then we'll look for suggestions. And the question that's going to be posed to you is what can we do better? Or what could we be doing that we're not thinking of? Like I said, we're, in law enforcement, we get into this profession because we're kind of control freaks. We like to have things under control. We like systems and processes, but that also can put a blinder on you, where you're not
Exactly.
seeing other options. So that's why. So that's the topic for next time.
Okay.
And then the time after that, I'll just fast forward here to. Sheet. All right, I lost my sheet that I had it on, but we got too many sheets flying around. So we'll talk about that. The second item that we were going to discuss that you guys decided was the second most important was use of force. So we'll do a presentation on use of force. We'll talk about our numbers. We do have it broken down by race. So we will talk about that, and we'll have those numbers for you and let you know what those look like. It was a 10-year study that we did, and we went back for 10 years and looked at every use of force, where it occurred at, what circumstances were, how it was, what was done, the race, ethnicity, even the residence of the person. Were they an Appleton resident or were they from out of town? So that'll be the 2 sessions from now. And then we'll get into like I said, the deep dive, the looking for solutions, looking for action steps for us. Anybody else have any questions on any of that? Amy asked about getting topics sent a week or 2 in advance. Yes, absolutely. So like next meeting, we're going to talk about community engagement, like I mentioned. So I will send out some documents. Not a lot. I'll try to keep them in summary for you. I know you're all busy. But just on projects that we have in place currently and things that we've done, partnerships that we have, just so that you can take a look at them and prepare some questions for us on those things.
Questions if you scroll back up, Chief.
From Amy.
And there's one from Cam, yeah.
All right, I'm missing. Can you just ask me?
Okay. Ken says, how do we help non-people of color not feel threatened by the inclusion effort? Focus on social injustice. I don't know if you want to address that one.
I'm looking for the question.
And
All right. Can you ask me that again, Megan? I can't hear you.
How do we help non-people of color not feel
Oh.
threatened? It's that question by Ken.
Okay, I see that question by Ken. How do we help non-people of color not feel threatened by inclusion effort? Yeah, just focusing on social justice. Inequality, I think, is the best way. And I don't know the proper answer for that question.
Austin's question about the training budget. Should be the last one.
Yep. Streaming. training budget is funded about the same every year. So again, we can talk about city budget, but we are restricted by the state. There's levy limits. There's only so much that we can spend every year in the city. And we kind of explain it as the pie. And the police department's pie is only so big. And if our piece of the pie is a little bit bigger, that means that parks gets cut, or your roads don't get fixed as quickly, or one of the other services the city provides. So we really are handcuffed by the state, and we're only allowed so much money. And that's kind of, that restricts our training budget. There really is only so much that we have extra that we can spend on training. We are very creative with our training, so we have a lot of officers that are certified trainers. So they will do a lot of on-shift training, a lot of roll call training, just 5 and 10 minutes here and there. So that's probably the most efficient way for us to do it, the most cost-effective. So now we're to the point of a roundtable, which is kind of what we've been doing. But I want to offer anybody that has any, instead of going down the list, anybody wants to make any comments, if you just want to speak up or raise your hand, and we'll just kind of take turns about anything that we've talked about tonight.
I have a question kind of in regards to the
Yes, Simon.
training.
Yes, sir.
Yep. And I guess if you had corporations that were willing to help out in that area, could you accept that help specifically for that diversity training?
Oh, absolutely. And we've had, we've had some great partners in the community. Thrivent, Bergstrom, they've really stepped up and helped us with some of our community engagement. If you see our, the new pretty SUV that we have with the flag on the hood, it's pretty colorful. That one's used just for our community engagement. That's our public information officer's vehicle, Megan Cash, and it's loaded in the back with all those tables and handouts and things that we do when we go out to community members, to churches, to other groups and do presentations. But that vehicle was given to us by Bergstrom. They called us and said, hey, we want to do something to help you engage more with the community. What do you need? And kind of jokingly, I said, well, a new car would be nice. And they said, okay. So we'll, anything that you, anybody that you know that is interested in helping us with training or diversity training. I know Kempton, I don't know if Kempton's on the call. Kempton Freeman.
I'm on here.
Oh, there you are. I don't have your picture
What's up,
though,
Chief?
Kempton. How you doing, sir?
Good, man. How you doing?
Awesome. I know Kempton's offered to come in and do some diversity training at some of our roll calls. When we have roll calls, again, unfortunately, we don't have them in person. We're doing them all by video like this. Again, just so our officers are protected. But if you have a company, I know you work for a large company, but if you have anybody that's interested, we will meet with them and talk about that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking for anybody else?
Yeah,
Chief,
for,
Bill, go ahead, Bill.
I got a question about mental health for officers. We touched on mental health outreach for the community and stuff, but I mean, I'm sure right now, in the past few months especially, but officers get to see all sorts of, unpleasant things throughout their job. What type of mental health support do they get
Right.
through the police department?
Yeah, this is a different time. It's my 35th year, so I go back. I remember the AIDS epidemic. I remember Rodney King, and this is kind of all of that combined in one for a lot of these officers. They've never had to deal with a COVID and then put the social unrest and the social justice issues that we're facing, and some of the things we're seeing some police departments do across the country and in the state even. It's been the toughest year of my 35 years. I will tell you that. I have had several officers I've had discussions with heart to heart who are really struggling with this profession. They know what they're doing is the right thing. They know we're not what you see on TV. They know there is some media narrative being spun out there. But they just want, They just want to be treated with respect, like everyone else is, like they treat everyone with. And our community is great at doing that. They really are. We've felt an outpouring of support. So yes, I've had some officers that have really struggled with the COVID, especially with COVID. Unfortunately, we've had officers also that have tested positive, and just like everyone has, we know people whose families are struggling with it. There is that fear with that of bringing it home to your family. Much like the AIDS epidemic that I remember. There's times I didn't sleep in my house. I slept on the couch or in my car because I just didn't know. And I wasn't bringing it into my house. And I know we have officers that have been doing the same thing. So mental health wise, I think we probably have one of the strongest programs for our officers in the state. Not only do we have a strong peer support team that we've had for years and years, we have 2 chaplains that are there for people that want spiritual assistance. And we have a mental health provider that is under contract for our officers. We've had her under contract for several years. She actually has a office, if you will, a room up here where she comes in a couple times a month. She has regular open office hours where officers can just stop in and meet with her privately. She's a licensed counselor. We also, for the second year in a row now, we are doing what we call mental health check-ins. So every employee in the police department is mandated to sit down with this counselor and meet with her for 1 hour. And you can talk to her if you want to talk to her, or you can just sit and listen, and it's just tips and tools for you. But she will go through and talk to you about mental wellness, how to take care of yourself, issues that may be happening in your life. Every officer, every employee gets the opportunity to do that at least once a year. She's also part of our EAP. So other officers, if you meet with her and you decide, I think me and my wife or my husband or my partner, we should talk to this counselor. They can do that under our EAP at no cost. If they have a child who's struggling, which I can guarantee you, I can tell you for sure, because my child has struggled with things they're seeing on TV and things they're hearing. She will meet with the children and counsel them. So I think we've got a really good, strong mental health program. We can always do more, but I'm happy with what we have. And again, we've got an officer who's a licensed clinical social worker. So Ignacio Enriquez, our behavioral health officer, also a member of our peer support team. I know he is a go-to person for people when they just need somebody to talk to. And I've gone into his office and had discussions with him too. So he's a great resource to have.
Nice.
Sure.
I think Joy had a question.
Joy, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I just want to say this is really inspiring to be here with everyone. So I just really wanted to express my gratitude. And I also want to make sure I'm following the rules, but also engaging with others on this topic. And so I notice on the Community Advisory Board guidelines under limitation of powers, the second bullet point is that none of the members of the board should release any written or oral report of any board activity to any individual or body other than the chief of police or the office of the mayor. And what I'm wondering is, because this is a public meeting, are we allowed to just speak with our friends, our community, our neighbors about this?
Yes, no, absolutely. You can meet with them and talk to them about that. I'm looking at you're looking at what number?
It's limitations of power, the second bullet point for the board guidelines. It's the front page.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the guidelines, not the policy. Yes. That doesn't preclude you or anybody from speaking with family members or neighbors or community members. This was actually put in, I think, by Legal Services, so that this more is going to doing presentations to the media, etc., doing interviews, things like that. So no, the goal is for you to reach out and talk to other family members, your neighbors, community members, but not use it as a stage to stand in front of the media and make some statements on behalf of the Community Advisory Board. Obviously, nobody should really be doing that. So that's what that paragraph or that bullet point is, Joy. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you for the clarification.
Yep, absolutely. No, I want you going out and talking to everybody you can.
Chief, there's a question in the chat from Kanan if you want to take a look at it.
How much of the budget is set aside for this board? Change needs to be included in the budget. That's a good question, Kanan. Right now, absolutely nothing is in the budget. This was put together pretty quickly, obviously. But I know that the mayor is a big supporter also. So that could be a discussion point going forward is, what kind of resources could we use to further the cause and, the mission of the Community Advisory Board. There is definitely potential there. I have to admit, I never thought of that, Keenan. That's a good question.
Well, my idea is that the Community Advisory Board needs to be effective.
Yes.
And sometimes, what I'm learning, I'm just really a humble barber. I'm just a humble barber. But what I'm learning is that in order for things to really be effective in our city, it needs funding. And if we don't have funding, it's sad to say. It shouldn't be this way. But it's sad to say that when we don't have funding for certain ideas and certain things, it don't come to pass. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm. No, you are absolutely right. Right now, if we need funding, it's going to come out of our budget. But we do have, a large budget. So right now, I would say, like, if this board would come up with an idea to do an outreach program or an outreach project or hold a symposium or something like that, and we needed a few $1,000s to do it, I could get it. We can make it happen. We can find money in our budget, or there's other funds that we can go to in the city and request that money. So, but you're absolutely right. Sadly, it is the way it is. We need money to drive things forward.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and Amy mentioned grants. Absolutely, there's a lot of grants out there through the Community Foundation that are just perfect for work that this board could do. So that's another good option, the grant option.
Hi, Chief Thomas, if you can hear me okay.
Hey, Kristen.
Think that, hi, I have a question that I don't think was touched on yet. From your recollection of your time on APD, have you ever seen any disciplinary action taken to another officer for racial profiling or anything on that accord? Any disciplinary action that you have recollected, or if you have, what that action looked like?
Yes, I ran those numbers. Actually, that question came up a couple of years ago, and at the time, we had to go back 10 years before we could find anything related to racial profiling. And the one that we found was a complaint. Again, I'm pulling this off the top of my head, so I hope I'm correct. It was a complaint of somebody saying they were followed because of their race by an officer. And it turned out the officer was actually working on a drug tip at the house that they were leaving, and that's why they followed them. But that was the complaint that we had, and that was like 10 years ago. So otherwise, no, I have not had any. Never had any filed. We have very few complaints. If people do have a complaint, just kind of walk you through our process. We encourage them to call. Generally, they will call a shift supervisor that's working. The first thing that shift supervisor will do will pull up the videos, the body cam video or the traffic cam video. Every one of our officers has a body camera on them. They are supposed to be activated, and they usually are activated when they have in contact with a citizen. We also have a traffic camera system in the city that is probably second to none. I believe we have over 150 cameras in the city at the street corners that cover a lot of activity. So we'll look at those, but the supervisor will talk with the person that has the concern or the complaint. He'll review the video. He'll call the officer and have a discussion with the officer. And then he will generally, or he or she will invite the complainant in to watch the body cam video. And they'll go through it. And I would say 9 times out of 10, that usually resolves it once the people have an explanation of what happened and why it happened. There's generally always more to the story that they don't know. But it gives us an opportunity to validate what we're doing or correct behavior if we need to correct behavior. Our officers, I still don't know why anyone would not have body cameras. I've said this many times before. I would not work for or be the chief for a department that did not have body cameras. They are not cheap. They're expensive. But the money that you spend is well invested in validating your employees' work, holding them accountable, collecting evidence, being transparent. We had an issue right in the middle of some of the protests where there was an allegation about something our officers might have done at one of the parks. And we called in, and we had one of the leaders of some of the activities come in and showed him the body cam video. And it put to rest a lot of what was bubbling out there on public or on social media. Because he went right on social media and basically said, hey, everybody stand down. I saw the body cam video. It happened just the way the officers said. I think that helps us a lot. But I am also well aware of the fact that people are intimidated and may not feel comfortable coming into the department or calling the department to complain about the department. So one of the things that we've done is allowed people can file a complaint online if they like. They can send me an email directly, and we've put this on our Facebook post and our website, to an email address called apdfeedback@appleton.org. That is an email that comes directly to me. I'm the only one that sees it. If anybody in the community has a question or concern or a complaint, and they're not comfortable coming in the building or calling, they can send it in by email or they can send an anonymous letter in, and we will still look at it. So I know there are issues with officers profiling. I hope it doesn't happen in Appleton, but I also know that we have to have our eyes wide open and be looking for it constantly and reviewing what our officers are doing to ensure that they're not doing that.
Are all those complaints logged and kept in a file, even if it's just an allegation?
Not if they don't follow through. If they just call and say, the officer was speeding down this road, we'll follow up with the officer. If they come into the station, the supervisors will generally create a record, and they'll keep it in their file for the district. Let the district captains know that they had an issue. If there's a formal complaint, then those are kept in a file. The assistant chief manages all the internal affairs complaints. He handles all the investigations, and those are all formal investigations that are done administratively and internally by generally the assistant chief and a captain.
Okay, and a follow-up to that is, you mentioned the body cam footage. I know it takes up a ton of space. It's a lot of data. How long do you keep that data? We
have a cloud server, so we have Axon that we have a contract with. So we have unlimited cloud storage. So we follow what the state statute says as far as retention. So generally contacts are saved for 121 days, I believe. If it's used for a crime or there's an arrest made, it's held until after the court is disposition, and sometimes it's held forever, just like any other evidence is held. We do not have an issue with storage at all because it's free and we can have as much of it as we want.
Chief, there's a handful of comments in the group chat if you want to address those now.
Who am I looking at?
There's Christy asking this year was your toughest, and then after that, there's one more from Kempton.
Oh, I get a question from Christy. Thanks for your comments, Christy. You know, cookies and lemonade. My belt has expanded a little bit in the last 6 months. So honestly, what I tell people is, you know, just say hi to an officer, just smile and wave, or a card. You know, we love getting cards from kids. I've got my desk in my office has maybe 50 of them spread out, and every now and then, you know, when we're having those bad days, you just kind of page through them. So just something that simple really is appreciated. Kempton asked procedure protocol when pulling over someone who is speeding. He's still waiting for body cam when it's pulled over for speeding on Wisconsin and Durkee, but pulled you over on Wisconsin and Mason. Procedure and protocol. Well, what generally happens on a speeding citation, I don't know if you got a citation or a warning or a written warning. They'll call out with it. They'll make a record of it in the computer. They'll have their body camera activated. Generally, what the way they are trained is they will walk up on the car, and it should be almost a canned response from the officers. You know, good evening. My name is Officer Thomas with the Appleton Police Department. The reason I've stopped you is you were speeding going 43 in a 25-mile-per-hour zone. Can I see your driver's license and insurance? That's generally the intro that you'll get from every police officer. Again, some might customize a little bit or be a little more relaxed, but that's generally what should happen after they get your license and insurance. Generally, they'll go back to their car, run it on their computer if they can, and then come up and end the contact with however they're going to contact you. If you are still having a problem getting any of that video, Kempton, let me know. Give me a call, and I'll do some follow-up on it. Okay?
Thanks, Chief.
Anybody else for the round table?
Yeah, I just had a quick question about mental health and sort of like your physical standards.
Okay.
You were saying you had a few different support staff for your mental health and how you have to do the checkup once a year. And like, I'm just thinking back to when I was in the Marine Corps, we had all of these really great support staff and people we could go to. And there was nothing stopping anyone from using that, but there was also no incentive in doing it. I'm just wondering, is there any like additional incentive to at least just getting these routine checkups? Because I really don't think a yearly checkup with a counselor for an hour is really enough to kind of figure out what's going on with somebody's mental health. And then the reason I brought up the sort of the physical standards is because I think that like really ties heavily into sort of the mental health is keeping your officers in good shape. And I just am thinking back to where I used to live, how so many officers were out of shape. I know a lot had a lot of drinking problems, and I'm just wondering what are the incentives to sort of work on both of those rather than just what's available.
Right. No, I appreciate that. The incentives for mental health wellness. That's a good question. I know there are some agencies that are doing, giving, like the day that they go in for the mental health checkup, they give them like half the day off, or they give them the rest of that day off to go do family stuff or just decompress. So that is something that I honestly have not thought about. I appreciate that. The fitness incentive. We do have a fitness incentive program at Appleton. We've had it for, I don't know how long, 20 years, 30 years, where in the past it's been twice a year. They run through, every officer is run through a physical fitness testing, which is either a run or a bike test, push-ups, sit-ups, stretching, and flexibility, stretching. So every year, twice a year, they had been doing that test. And then if they score high enough on that test, according to their sex and their age group, they can get a 1% pay or a 2% increase in their pay, which is a really nice incentive. Just recently, negotiations with the union because it's in their union contract. We've gone to doing it once a year in the fall. And we actually just did it a few weeks ago. We actually did it a couple weeks ago. It took us some time to get the COVID issues dealt with because obviously we don't want to cross-contaminate. But that is the physical fitness incentive program that we have. We have a pretty high standard for fitness. I know which departments you're talking about. I'm a big fitness advocate, always have been. I think mental wellness and physical wellness are tied together. I think it's hard to separate them. And I know we have a department that's very, very active. You'll see us involved in a lot of different physical fitness events and fundraisers and things like that. Yes, Kanan.
Again, Chief Thomas, if I can add.
Yes, sir.
Or say anything. So with that in mind, would you agree or would you not agree the fact that so some of those expenses that's paid for mental health through the police department, can we hire or figure out a way to employ other people? Because, when they talk about reallocating police funds, my idea is that we're not trying to take away from the community. We're not trying to take away from the police department. But at the same time, I do feel that there's certain things that we can use funds to have counselors. Counselors to the point to where the counselors can actually deal with certain things to where the police don't have to show up for. We don't need our police showing up for certain situations where we can actually solve them based on counselors.
Yep.
How do you feel about that, sir?
You're 2 months ahead of us, Kanan. That actually is the third topic, behavioral health and mental health programs. We have been working for more than a year now, close to a year, with putting together that exact thing. It's an ideal response system to mental health crisis, people in mental health crisis.
And
so it would be embedding a social worker in with the police department with our behavioral health officers so that we would have a response team and we would respond much like we do for other calls, Kanan. Like, we don't send the SWAT team to handle a barking dog call. If we get a call that's a mental health related call that doesn't require law enforcement, in our opinion right now, we are the only ones that are answering the bell. And the better response might be a mental health provider alongside an officer or just a mental health provider. So we've been having those discussions with our community partners now for a while. I can tell you, I'll give you more in-depth information on it, but we had a meeting a couple weeks ago where we actually did a tabletop with law enforcement, human services, Northeast Wisconsin mental health services, we had maybe 15 people in the room, and we talked through what the ideal system would be. And it would be responding in triaging like a hospital does. Like a level 1 response is a call where you have an individual who may be armed with a knife or a gun or threatening suicide. Well, that's an officer's call. We have to go there and make that safe first, and then get them to the help they need. But you may also have somebody calling, a third party calling, saying that they saw a Facebook post of somebody that maybe made some comments that were concerning to them, and they don't think they have any weapons, but they need to be checked on. Well, like you mentioned, Keenan, that's really not something that we need an officer to go to, but it would be nice to have a set of social workers go and respond to that call. So we've had those discussions. We've been having those discussions. We're already working with the hospitals and trying to see what that might look like. But you're absolutely correct. Some calls law enforcement doesn't need to go to, but again, a lot of those calls are already going to human services or being handled in the schools by social workers. So it's not going to take a ton of calls off our plate. What it's going to do is get a better service to the consumer. It's going to minimize some of the time that we have to spend on those calls, and it'll get the right people in the right place to help facilitate what that person actually needs. So
Right.
again, that was number 3 in what you guys
Thomas,
voted on in topics. So I'm sorry, go ahead, Kanan.
I feel as though, you know, if anybody in this group cannot see how big our city is growing right now, we starting to get more big businesses in our city. We start, you know, the housing market is increased big time. So this is the up and coming city right now that if, you know, we got to really pay attention to things that's going on in this city, and we got to be progressive about it, you know. And I just personally feel like our police officers shouldn't have to deal with so much, you know, like they shouldn't have to deal with the things that's petty. You know, now somebody robbing the bank, somebody getting robbed, somebody shooting a gun, somebody do certain things. Yes, that's what we need officers for.
Right.
But at the same time, we don't need the officers to go out. I got a nutty person. Lord forgive me. Y'all got to understand. I got somebody next door to me that has a lot of mental issues. So the police is there all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they really need a counselor to go over there and talk to them to where the police don't have to come through. We don't have to have our officers out there making it look like it's something that it's not, when you really got somebody that's got mental issues. But it looks like they could be selling drugs or anything. That's how it looks.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, no,
The perception is everything.
Yep. Yeah, and we've gotten, well, I can tell you there's one just this weekend where you had 4 or 5 calls at the same address for somebody with a mental health issue, but it wasn't to the level where other services would come out and take care of the issue. So we got repeatedly called back, and the calls were things like there were people in the house with guns. Well, you know, you can't say that that's not accurate until you get there and make sure that that's not true. But it was those types of calls. So eventually, you know, today, thank God we were able to get another provider into the house and took care of that. But again, it was a weekend full of calls at this address, which is probably something similar to what you've seen. There are a couple agencies that have behavioral health response teams. I know Green Bay has a great one, and Wausau. They have a model that we've looked at. So, you know, what we're looking at is something similar to that, embedding mental health providers with our officers, with our behavioral health officer, but also taking it to the next step where we're actually not dispatching officers to the calls, that our dispatch center is actually maybe diverting some of those to social workers and counselors. So I'm 100% in agreement with you, Kanan, on that. It's just, it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of moving pieces and partners that are involved in it, including the healthcare profession. So that makes it very challenging, as you know.
2 more in the chat. You want to take a look? One from Rana.
From Austin. Officers, we encourage all our officers, not just our school resource officers, to get out in the schools. Be involved with schools. The incentives, something that we changed here that about 6 years ago now. There used to be an evaluation system that looked at the number of contacts that an officer had in a shift. So it wasn't a quota where they had to have so many tickets, but you had to have so many contacts within an 8-hour period, and it went into your evaluation. And they looked at things like parking tickets and speeding tickets and warnings. So it was all officers going out looking for illegal behavior or bad behavior that they had to initiate a contact on, and they would get credit for it. And we're human beings. Anything that you count has value. If you tell an employee that I'm going to count the number of widgets you make on a shift, well, that's what they're going to pay attention to, is how many widgets they make. So we got rid of that. We changed that, and we started giving people credit for crime prevention screens. We call them crime prevention screens. Basically, it's a positive contact. It's not stopping everybody you see and issuing warnings for everything you can so that you can meet your numbers that you need to meet for an evaluation. It's giving them credit for getting out in a park and hanging out with the kids and playing ball, visiting birthday parties, stopping at the schools and doing walkthroughs with the schools. One of the things that we have with the school district is an agreement. They'll send us a report on activities that they had their hours at the schools and on the weekends, and that goes to our officers that work in the districts. And they can go through that and they can see that they've got something going on tonight at Edison. And they can stop in and just do a walkthrough. And it may be a basketball game, and maybe something else, some other event, but it's an opportunity to have a positive contact. Because we say, in this profession, the negative stuff's going to find you. There's no way around it. The 911 calls are going to come, and you're going to have to go to them, and you're going to have to deal with the ugly stuff. But the good stuff, the good calls, the positive things, you sometimes have to go search out. So we started doing that. We started giving officers credit for that. And those crime prevention screens. And now we are up to, I think we're averaging probably over 20, 25 of those types of contacts, calls a day that our officers are doing. And we keep encouraging it. It's actually one of our benchmarks for our budget that we put together. We included that in our budget as a benchmark that we try to reach every year. So many thousands of those crime prevention contacts. All right, does anybody else have any for the round table comments? I did find my list here. It took me a while, but from your survey monkey that you responded to, I think we had 20 out of the 25 responded. Number one was community engagement, working with minority and other community members. So we'll talk about that the next meeting, and I'll get you information on that. Number two was use of force. The third one was behavioral health and mental health programs in the community. Fourth was crime statistics and information. And then fifth was training and our equipment. So we'll just take them in the order that you guys voted on and that you want to talk about. Starting with the community engagement, the next session.
Chief, if I could say one thing though.
Yep.
We got a couple guys right now that's been arrested and charged for protesting. And yes. Me being a representation of the Black community, I don't feel like that's fair for them to get arrested and charged with felony charges. I feel as though, you know, people do things that's way less. Yeah, they might have cursed at some police officers, and we talk to those guys. We talk to them, and yeah, but at the same time, I don't feel like they should be being charged with felony charges for protesting what they feel is right. Right. Me, as the president of POP, I support them 100%. And I don't feel that that's necessary for them to be charged with felony charges. They're young Black men. None of them have charges in their past. You know, they're not criminals. You know, one of the guys I know for sure, that was his first time being in jail. Now, I'm not trying to push my agenda on anything, but I'm speaking for my community. And right. What I'm saying is that I don't think that's fair. And if it's anything we could do to work together, Chief, to make sure that this doesn't happen to my youth, to the youth of my community, I would appreciate it.
Right. No, I appreciate it, Keenan. I know what you're talking about. Again, we can't get into specifics because there's pending charges on that. I will tell you there's videos that the DA has, and it'll be the district attorney's office how to dispose of that. You know, those charges were sent for review to them to decide whether they determined there was enough probable cause for a charge, and they determined there was. And then the criminal complaints are public, so they're out there to review. You know, I have a lot of respect for both those individuals. And we, speaking in the protest in general, about the protests in general, 98% of the protests were, besides obstructing the road, which upset a lot of people, they were peaceful. We didn't have a lot of damage. We only had a couple incidents of physical violence,
None,
but
none,
nothing major.
none at all, Chief. You know, we really did. You know, they are honest. They good kids. You know, and
Yep.
I represent them. And what I'm saying is, you know, I will continue to represent those kids. And I want you to know at the same time we offering them guidance as well. So we try to ensure that they, when they do protest, they do things a certain type of way. But at the same time, that's their right to protest.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll always protect people's right to protest. We're just going to have to let this one go through the process and see what the DA determines and how they resolve it. Again,
But-
once it's in her hands, it's out of our hands. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Honest, a felony is unacceptable.
Well, yeah, again, that's a discussion for the DA's office and for them and the
Do you agree
attorneys.
with me? Do you agree with me? A felony is unacceptable. Those
That's
at the protest in Appleton, they had over 1,000 followers. You know,
Right.
no, they're not perfect.
No,
They're
I
not-
agree.
Neither
I
am I.
agree. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead, Keenan.
Neither am I. I'm not perfect either. But what I'm saying is those kids do not deserve a felony on their record based on them standing up for what they believe is right. If I'm wrong, please tell me, just say, okay, you wrong.
No, I can't. I'm not going to make that determination. I have to leave that up to the prosecutor's office, and they can determine whether they want to prosecute it or not, or whether they come to some other type of agreement. You know, like I mentioned, the vast majority of almost all the protests were peaceful. There were a couple times where people clearly crossed the line, and I think that's when people have to be held accountable, and it's now out of our hands. It is into somebody else's hands that we have no involvement with, for them to decide in the district attorney's office and in the courts. So I do understand what you're saying, though, Keenan. Love to have a longer discussion about it with you offline, maybe.
Elijah has a question for you, Chief, about North High School.
I do have another question, actually, related, but I won't say the relation to it. How does APD deal with conflicts of interest when there may be a family member involved or something, and it's a family member of the police officer, and they have a conflict of interest with the individual who may be a suspect, or
Right.
you know.
Yep, we and I've said this before. We don't ever prosecute anyone. There's a separation in the criminal justice system. You know, we'll make an arrest or we'll make a referral, but the decision whether they get charged or not is totally independent. It's done by a district attorney or the city attorney's office. These cases that Kanan's talking about, that is a district attorney's office. So that is where there is no conflict of interest, because there is no connection at that point. And again, it goes to a court commissioner or a judge to sign a warrant. So that is another review, another layer of review by an independent person that reviews the facts of a case to determine if there's probable cause to make an arrest or not. So it's several layers removed from the police department, if you will.
Chief, I think you might be referring to if say your son or daughter commits a crime, how
Right.
is that handled?
Oh, those are all referred out to different agencies. So if it's the employee, a family member of an employee, or there's a potential conflict of interest because of the person that may be a suspect, may be involved in city government or some way, something like that, then they generally get referred out. If it's an investigation, it'll get referred out to a different agency. And generally, it'll also go to a different county to prosecute. So, and we've done those in Appleton for other counties and other jurisdictions that have come to us to ask us to do it because they've had conflict of interest issues. So that agency, we would reach out to an agency to do it and send it to a different district attorney's office if it would involve one of our family members.
Question from Elijah about North High School and increasing school outreach.
Increase school. We've seen. You said I have seen it. This drug. Yes, the drug dogs. Yeah, Elijah asked about Appleton North Policing and how often he sees them out there walking around. There is a way to increase school outreach. We've got our SRO up there, Officer Donosky, but they also can tap into their other SROs if they're having an issue in the school or they need extra patrols. We also, again, will assign patrol officers to also do that. If we get complaints of something happening in a neighborhood up around one of the schools, we'll assign patrol officers to do extra patrols and extra checks about that. So
I think he is also wondering about just what overall outreach do we have that you talked about the school stops.
which one? Which one?
They're just Elijah's question. I think was just also
Okay.
just how can we.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot more about outreach when we talk next time on community engagement, because that'll all be part of the community outreach. We'll talk about different things, not just the department's doing, but the SROs are doing and our different units. So, does anybody else on the round table have any questions, concerns? Anything that you think we need to know about going on in the community that you're hearing? So I will, I think we've kept a pretty good list. I hope Megan's kept a really good list, a running list of things that we're going to send out to you guys and questions we're going to answer. If not, this is being taped, so we'll be able to review it and we'll make sure we don't miss anything. We'll go through the recording just to make sure. Does anybody have anything else right now? Just going to kind of give it a minute in case anything pops into your head. Any questions?
Yeah, Chief, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a questions about, do we have the list of Black Americans or Black Africans who are incarcerated today? Do we have that list? Do we have where can we get that list?
Oh, the numbers? We
Yeah,
can get
the
them.
numbers.
I can get them from Outagamie County Jail. I'm having Megan write that down. She's writing it down now. We'll be able to get those numbers as far as the numbers incarcerated in the county jail. As far as the State Department of Corrections, I believe they listed on their website.
Okay.
They have a breakdown on their website of basically anything that you need to know about the state prisons. But I can get you Outagamie counties.
All right. Thank you so much, Chief.
Really? Yep. And we'll send all this stuff out to everybody. So,
All right.
okay.
So we talk about the jails. I don't know if my brother that was his specific question about the jails, but how do we get it out towards the Black community that's not in the jails? You know, I offer my barbershop plenty of times as a outlet, you know, but how do we get it out besides the jails?
That's a question.
Or what would you call it? How, you know, poor housing developments, you know, because, you know, it's a lot of us out here that, you know, we don't have the food stamps, we don't have the Section 8, that type of thing. You know, how do we get of our community? I'm just speaking for
Getting
the
them resources or getting them resources, Kanan? Is that what you mean?
Yes, not resources. He was speaking on, you know, what was we talking about, the survey?
No, he's talking about the number of people incarcerated in the jail that are African American. Yeah, he wasn't talking about the survey, Kanan. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I'm talking about the numbers of people who are incarcerated today,
Yes.
Black, African,
Yep.
who
Yeah.
are already in jail today.
Yep.
Either
Yep.
way, that's a big mission as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kanan and I had a discussion with Kanan and Kristen, I don't know, a couple weeks ago actually, about our survey. I mentioned our survey where we are trying to find a way to get the last survey, 2018, the return rate was less than 1% African American. So we are trying to find a way to reach out to all the different segments of the African American community to engage all of them, and like we did for the Hispanic community, sending them a survey in Spanish to complete. How do we reach out to all the different parts of the African American community and get their feedback? So that's something I've asked Kanan and Kristen and all of you, if you have suggestions or ideas on how we can do that. Because less than 1% doesn't tell us what we need to know. We need to know what the African American community and Hispanic community, how are they answering those surveys? I think.
Well, I think the main thing is to get more officers that look like us, more teachers that look like us, more people in the community that look like us. And if we do that, then we won't need as much restraint. It won't be as much restriction from our youth. I think our youth is looking for people that look like them, especially when you come from a bigger city. You need people that look like you. And that's all. It's a gap that we're missing right now in our city, because a lot of people come from bigger cities. You know, when you think about, you know, the Black people and, you know, people of color that come from bigger cities, you know, like I grew up having Black teachers. A lot of kids haven't.
Right.
I grew up seeing, you know, I had Black police officers in my neighborhood, but a lot of kids haven't seen that around here.
Right.
But, you know, right down the block from me, 2 blocks down, I had a Black officer that lived down the block from me. You know, that's the type of stuff we need to see in our community to where our kids feel comfortable. You know, and I tend to talk a lot, but what I'm trying to say is real stuff, though. You know, like we need to have people of color in higher positions in order for our kids to feel okay with being Black. Our kids need to feel okay with being Black in this community. And the only way they feel that way is if they see people of color in positions to where they can see their fathers, they can see their uncles, they can see their grandfathers, they can see their, you know, that type of big bros. That's the type of thing we need. And
Absolutely.
I don't talk a lot, but I guess I do. I guess I have.
Yeah, I think I wanted, sorry, Chief, I wanted to support that as well, in the sense that I look at myself first. I can't imagine. I did my MBA in Concordia, and then started working. Anytime you go out, you see a lot of issues with the police. I remember the last time I was stopped, I almost got shot with nothing in my hands. I've never heard any crime. I've never done anything before in my life, but I almost got shot because I was going to church, because they couldn't see you in their own skin, basically, so that affects them somehow. So I think what my brother is saying is basically, if you see those people, they will want to shoot you. Probably everybody has a different ball games. Somebody wants to look at you differently, the other person looks at you differently, and then there's an issue. So we got to, one of the things I like Appleton for, one of the things I really want to appreciate Appleton for, because I live in Milwaukee for 7 years. Appleton's police department is 70% better than Milwaukee's own. I have been in Appleton and I've been stopped 2, 3, 4 times. I think it's way, 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 way more. I must appreciate the chief here, that your people are doing excellently well. They may not be above and beyond, but I think it's a little better compared to Milwaukee. But at the same time, we still have a lot of issues in terms of getting people that look like us to be in the in the system and that look like us to be in the power, that look like us to be in the establishment, that would save us a lot of headache when we see them. We almost want to run. Anytime you see a policeman, a white man, you feel that you may get shot. So that fear, that agony, that problems, that headache is on your face, is right in your face, and then you don't know how to cope with it. So that's why sometimes you see black men messing up, because they have problems with their mentors because of the issues they are encountering with the police. So we got to find a way to address these issues, and I believe it can be done. I believe this we are good people in Appleton. I believe things can be done if we address it in a very good way.
Absolutely. I really appreciate what you said. And I absolutely agree. I think, and this is, this board can take some of that leadership and mentoring. I know Kanan and some have been doing that with some of the younger African-Americans in town, trying to mentor them, and counsel them. And that's what they need. But I think it also would be great to see more African Americans in leadership positions in the city, on the city council, involve some of the city boards.
Yeah.
I think that would be outstanding. And I know this mayor would be very interested in that too. So as you see those positions come up, just like you did when you applied for this board, I would encourage you to reach out to the mayor or talk to Karen Nelson and have those discussions. That would be outstanding.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome. Anybody else for the roundtable?
So a lot of what I'm hearing tonight comes down to trying to bring people into Appleton of a diverse background. I'll try to keep this brief because I know it's gone for quite a while at this point. But you brought up, trying to recruit people in, going to other cities that are more diverse and bringing people in. Have you guys looked at, maybe brainstorming ways to make Appleton a destination of choice rather than trying to go and pull people in that direction, rather saying, hey, we're great, we're right here, why don't you come to us? So it's maybe a little less, for lack of a better term, desperate or anything, right, trying to get people to be able to come here and drag them over rather than say, hey, we're pretty great, we've got good pay. It sounds like you're saying that you've got great pay in your department. To me, it seems like kind of a no-brainer that you should be able to get people in more easily. I know that's pretty naive of the situation. I understand that, but
yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and we do. We, when you get that USB card in the mail, those that you haven't gotten them already, hopefully you get them the next day or two. But we actually give those out. We hand those out instead of business cards when we go out and do recruitments, and we tell them what an amazing place Appleton is to raise your family. If you've got kids, it's a great place with a lot of opportunity. It's resource rich. We're working hard at being more diverse and inclusive and accepting of everyone. I've lived in, like I said, this is my 5th department. I've lived in a lot of different cities, and Appleton is leaps and bounds of the other places that I've lived. And we do use that when we recruit. We are good ambassadors for the entire city, not just for our department. So, anybody else have any comments? I know this has gone long. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we've talked about, and that's our main focus is the interaction with the police, but maybe it will help to have just that bigger picture of how, this is one pillar. What is the overall strategy for, all of Appleton? What's happening on those different boards to increase the representation, to increase the image of the city. I don't have that full picture. I'm willing to learn and see how, I can help and support that as well. But it may be good to see that picture of how, we fit into that plan.
Great. No, thank you. I think for next meeting when we talk about the community engagement programs, I'm probably I'm not going to put her on the spot now because I see she's on the screen here, but I'm probably going to invite Karen Nelson to talk a little bit about that, our diversity coordinator, and I'm sure the mayor is going to want to have some input to that also and talk a little bit about what his vision is and his plan going forward, because I know that is something that he's talked about.
And there is one more thing that I had noted too, and you've heard some good feedback, but I guess, is there an opportunity, and there may be a plan for this, to, I guess, give some of this feedback, some of the examples, some of the stories that were shared here, with some of us on this call, directly to the officers and so we can get to know them as well and share those concerns directly.
Yes. No, we will. Beth is taking minutes tonight. What we do is we generally, when we have a crime council once a week, we'll get together and we'll talk about crime issues and things going on in the city. And we'll type out a summary and we'll get it out to all the officers just to keep them informed. But I know that not all of them are going to have 2 hours or so to sit and watch this. So we'll type up minutes and we'll make sure we get it out to all the officers about things we talked about tonight, concerns that were brought up, suggestions that were made.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Armin. All right. Anybody else?
Comment from Austin?
And thank you for that invitation,
Yes.
Chief, and I'll take you up on that at the next meeting.
Excellent. Thanks, Karen. Yes. Yep. We are going to go into more detail on the officer involvement in schools at the next meeting, which we'll set the date probably this week yet. All right. Again, I'm going to ask you all just reach out if you have any other questions during the week. Something pops in your head in the next couple of days that you wish you would ask or you think about. Please just give me a call or email me anytime. I'll get back to you right away. I know this one went a little long, but as expected. And I'm actually kind of impressed. The technology worked fairly well. So
Yeah.
I've been on a lot worse Zoom meetings than this. So thank you all for your patience. Thank you all for agreeing to be on the board. We are going to get deep into the issues. Again, tonight was just more of an introduction and kind of a talk through the processes that we're going to follow and some of the more timely topics. Next month, I'll invite the mayor in too, have him talk a little bit about big picture city involvement with community engagement and increasing diversity in some of the city positions also. So I'm interested in that discussion too. So does anybody have anything else before we adjourn? All right, I appreciate all of you. Thank you all for sitting through this tonight. I'll put out another survey probably in the next couple of weeks to see how comfortable people are with this, or if there's people that want to start meeting in person. I guess we're going to have to gauge COVID just like anything else. Right now, things are just really bad. So I'm hesitant to try to meet in person. But I do know that we have some facilities that would be willing to open up to us, large facilities where we could spread out if we wanted to meet in person. But I'll run that by the board first and let you guys decide how you want to do that. But like I said, we'll wait for a couple weeks, see what happens with COVID. Hopefully things will get much better here. But all right. Appreciate it. Nice seeing everybody for the first time. Look forward to meeting you guys and working with you guys in the future. All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Chief.
Bye.
Have a good night.